Let's bring in national trial attorney Michael Jaafar to talk about it. Michael, let me just let you say what has stood out to you the most from her testimony.
The fact I thought that she would definitely come in and say they had some sort of a court-appointed receiver who was harassing him, which would explain the bizarre behavior, because people have to understand a $1.5 million judgment is a paper judgment, right? And so it depends on how aggressively you follow somebody when you have such a paper judgment. I was looking for something like that because his behavior was so bizarre, and I didn't see it, and the cross-examination didn't hit home for me. And so for me, his behavior was, we already knew it was bizarre before this trial started. And it's so bizarre, it explains why he was charged. Now I see that the behavior was so bizarre. In my opinion, I think that the state has met their burden of proof. I believe that they built their prima facie case that he, in fact, kill Mindy. And his behavior was so bizarre because of the fact that he was killing her. I was very, very underwhelmed by the evidence he had to refute Heather on, I was this nice ex-wife. I wasn't really pursuing him. I thought that they should have done more in order to help their clients with that. But maybe they didn't do more because they didn't have more. Maybe he's just maybe he just had a mental breakdown, and that's why he was so bizarre. That's kind of what stood out for me.
Yeah, I want to ask you more about the mental breakdown in a moment, or the potential of that. We haven't heard that in the evidence, but I want to ask you about that first question that the defense attorney asked, where he wanted to know more about if she could have been cheating on him and whether or not her next husband had actually started dating her before the marriage was over or separated from Nick Casotis. That sounded to me like a client-mandated personal question. Do you think that's something Nick Casotis wanted to hear her talk about under oath?
She put on this nice layer on direct examination as this really nice, affable person. Even I was moved by the whole thing, by her whole presentation. And I think in cross-examination, you want to peel away layers and show that the person is not as innocent, as nice as they can. I didn't think about it until you just said it, that maybe the defendant told them to do that. Because obviously he felt some kind of way about it. I didn't think about it until you just said it. Maybe that's why, because it was kind of comical. It was kind of like a throw-in. But I thought it was more to peel away the layers of niceness and, just a nice, affable manner that she had. But yeah, perhaps it was Casotis telling them, hey, the defendant saying, she's not as good as she seems to be. Go ahead and ask her this question. That's kind of actually funny, because I think that would have happened.
It just seemed irrelevant to me, but you make a good point that it could just be to try and sully up a witness on the stand. You mentioned this potential that he is having a break from reality. She helped us understand perhaps where this last name, this fake name that he came up with. I wasn't sure if it was going to be from Iron Man. Now we hear it was from Game of Thrones. Perhaps that he decided to call himself Nicholas Stark. He was telling people that he was actually the child of diplomats instead of the parents that he had, that they were his adopted parents. Everything seems to be connected to a fairy tale for this author. Do you think that there's a part of this, and perhaps that will come through if he takes the stand, where he has gotten caught up in his own web of lies or his own story?
He, in my opinion, he's suffering from mental health delusion. I've advised many people who have assets who are entertaining a divorce, and some of the most competent, well-adjusted people, men and women, doctors, lawyers, who I've advised, they have a break from reality temporarily when they're entertaining a divorce, and they come up with these off-the-wall ideas on how to protect their assets. But it's not even about money, it's about competitiveness. And so people really become very traumatized with a divorce or a pending divorce. This person, in my opinion, went to a level that is and I've never had a client tell me I'm going to chop somebody up and put them in the woods, right? But if you're already a person with a disturbance, it would make sense. So I think that's why he had this.
Well, we will see what happens. Michael Jaafar, thank you for your analysis. And bring in national trial attorney Michael Jaafar as we talk about the state resting their case and the potential of Nick Casotis taking the stand. Do you think he's going to be able to resist?
He's going to have to take the stand. I was just going to say that. We saw another case in the South. I don't want to mention the name because it'll convolute this conversation, but he was also an attorney accused of murdering his wife and son. He had to take the stand, and he was convicted in large part because the jury knew that he lied about very material facts, and his behavior was also very bizarre. We now know that Nicholas Casotis has been caught lying about something very, very important, how his wife died, right? When he knew that she didn't die because of those reasons, and he lied. The jury now knows that. They're not going to unhear that. So you're going to have to take the stand. You had other family members and people that you've had relationships with walk the plank in front of the jury. You cannot sit mute. He's going to have to take the stand.
You know, there's a lot of motives in this case. The prosecution doesn't have to prove motive, but they have floated several, and none of them seems to be the one. You know, sometimes they say when the answer is multiple, then it's really none of those. But there's been floated that he did this to try and avoid that $1.5 million judgment from his ex-wife, Heather, who we heard from, or that he perhaps had been found out by Mindy that he was lying about so many things, or that he wanted to be with his third wife, who he had already started to have an interest in. What do you make of him getting on the stand and trying to explain away those motives, perhaps to say none of those were the reason?
He's going to have to take the stand and explain away a lot. The motives will be some of them. But to me, if he doesn't do that, then he's leaving a big, massive hole. The gods of the jury will punish you if they feel that you are insulting their intelligence. So he does not take the stand and explain away the motives, the reasoning, the $1.5 million judgment, his mindset, because that's what it really comes down to. If he doesn't do it, they'll punish him, because at the end of the day, somebody killed her. He's saying it's not me. Well, who else would have? You're the only person who had the motive. And your behavior was so bizarre. This is if I was a juror in the jury room. Your behavior was so bizarre. Nobody else could have killed her. So you must, whoever was pursuing you on that 1.5, your previous, she wasn't going to murder her. So he's going to have to take the stand for those reasons.
And we will be standing by to see what he says first thing in the morning. Michael Jaafar, thank you for all of your comments and analysis on this case. We've got to squeeze in a break.